welcome back. First time in a bit, we've taken 3 days off entirely here on the channel, but between a few things that popped up and an unhealthy amount of time in Dune Awakening, it is what it is. As a result, we're not the first to talk about this, but being that I was stoked for this game from the beginning and that I really wanted it to reach the audience that I think it can, onward still. Delta Force has finally announced what people have been waiting for from the very beginning, a console launch date. Today, we're taking a look at what you need to know, what to expect, and the weight of this announcement and the timing of it all. So drop your thoughts down below, drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more, and maybe follow over on Twitch if you want to join in on these conversations live. But anyways, let's get into it. So Delta Force launched late last year on PC, a little bit later on mobile, and yet still has to on console. When Delta Force was initially announced, it was something that many people were looking forward to. Respectfully, it was kind of a Battlefield clone, that big set-piece combat, but free to play. And then, not to mention, you had the extraction mode that was solid, perhaps the best entry-level extraction shooter we had seen since, I personally think, DMZ, in the way of accessibility and ease to pick up. Now, is it the most in-depth, the most hardcore? Not by any means, but it was something that if you were just somebody trying to dip your toes into the extraction shooter, it was a great option here for you. Not to mention, they then released the campaign shortly after, that classic Black Hawk Down campaign on Unreal 5. So there was a lot of buzz around the game when it launched. We talked about it a bunch on the channel, we played it a bunch, we followed it a bunch, but the one big hurdle, especially here on the channel with the audience that we have, is the console player pool. I'd talk about the game and people would be stoked about it, get excited to jump into it, and then unfortunately be let down when they realized, oh, it's only on PC, I can't play it on console. Now, initially, the launch plan was Q1 of 2025, that being the end of March, but very clearly, we're past that now as this stands of July 1st, which at that point would have probably put console players about like a season behind those that were playing PC. Bummer, but not the end of the world. Then it was delayed without a new date shortly before the end of that window, and players were just kind of left in the dark until a few days ago. That's when it was finally revealed, and it was officially announced the console release will be August 19th. This coming from a live stream with the developers talking about the upcoming content, the new season that will be launching, but they also said that that hard work they're putting into the console version has finally paid off, and that we will see that now finally come fully on August 19th. Now, there is going to be a closed beta in July, if that does seem like quite a bit of time away. So sometime this month, there's going to be a closed beta where signups aren't needed for that, and it's going to be something that is invite only, it seems like, but with it being a closed beta, it's still going to be large enough you can probably get in on that. You can check their socials and or their website for signups here if you want to get in on it, but there will be something that ties us over a little bit until the end of next month now at this point. Strange to say that we're now in July, but anyways, it is officially and finally going to be coming. The full offering of the game, all the multiplayer, that warfare offering, the operations and extraction mode there, and the campaign will all be coming to console. Now, it is something that is going to be available on Xbox Series X and S, as well as PlayStation 5, but notably not last generation of Xbox One and PlayStation 4, which is a little interesting because of all the games I feel like recently on PC that play pretty well, Delta Force is relatively well optimized from the last times that I played, and even from whenever I was out at Summer Game Fest last year when they were having a demo out there, they debuted that on a laptop. So it's not like you need a massive rig or anything to run this, but it is going to only be on current generation. Personally, I'm okay with this. We're starting to finally see that trend of more PlayStation 5 active users than PlayStation 4, as opposed to earlier last year, where it was a dead even split of monthly active users on PlayStation 4 versus 5. So that's something that's definitely nice, that if you start to see that trend finally pushing forward, I personally see no reason to limit development potential of a game at that point. Not to mention, you're getting closer now as a developer to developing things for the next generation of console, which then in a little bit of time, we as consumers will probably start to be seeing more reports of the actual versions of these consoles that will be coming in a couple of years. We're closer to that point as opposed to when these current generations of consoles launched, which is kind of crazy. I feel like this has been one of the strangest console generations, kind of feels like a fever dream, but it's a different story for a different day. It also should be mentioned that you can pre-order the game, which is slightly different from wishlisting. The pre-order actually comes along as a sort of bundle that you can buy, that whenever the game ends up launching on console, you'll have that stuff where I think it's $9.99, but you end up getting Delta coins and a couple of weapon skins and a few XP tokens, and there's only available one per account, so it's one of those things that seems like like it's just kind of a starter pack with a price tag associated with what is otherwise going to be free to play. Bear that in mind. You do not have to. You can wish list it. You don't have to pre-order, but that is something that they're kind of pushing as a little bonus here for it, I guess. But beyond that, crossplay is also something that was confirmed here at this. Officially stated, crossplay available between console and PC versions, and that progression is shared among console, PC, and mobile. So if you've played on PC but would prefer to play on console afterwards when this ends up launching, you'll have that progress saved. You can pick up right where you left off. Same thing with vice versa. Maybe you check it out for the first time on console and decide, hey, I kind of want to play this on PC. That can also work. One thing that they really stressed on, and I'm curious to see what the balance of this is here whenever we see it on console. One of the things they stressed really early when talking about the console gameplay was finding this balance in things like aim assist, a predominantly mouse and keyboard game that would then immediately be full of aim assist. That ecosystem would be offset and off balanced a bit. So while I'm expecting things like that on console, the crossplay element may bring up some new discussions on if it should be there or not. Also, it should be noted that Delta Force has had significant cheating problems in the past and may still very well be having significant problems. So for somebody that's on console, they may not want to be subjected to that necessarily. So will there be any settings in place that allows for, say, console to console crossplay only, or whatever the case? We'll have to wait and see. Now, I guess the biggest question coming out of this is it too late for this to launch for Delta Force? August 19th is getting towards the point of the year where there's going to be some competition, and it's well past when the game launched that the initial hype period of a free-to-play Battlefield sort of clone or competitor is out there with a nice extraction mode. I personally don't think so. I personally think that it's not too late for it. I think if anything, it's either going to be a good warm-up for some of these other contenders, that if you want to stay hot with something that's a new shooter while you wait for the next bigger AAA title, that's something you could do, but also it actually might not be bad for some competition for those games as well. I mean, you have Battlefield. If that comes out this year, that's a big competitor. Obviously, we talked about how this is basically taking aim at that main multiplayer mode in it for Battlefield. Call of Duty is going to be happening, of course. Death, taxes, and Call of Duty every single year are the only guarantees in life. And then Arc Raiders is going to be competition in that extraction genre. But more immediately for this is there's immediate potential for competition, because a late August console release date is kind of flirting with a beta territory of other games out there. Depending on when reveals happen and everything, it's possible we could see a beta happen for any of those three games we just mentioned as, like, I think main competitors in the larger invested AAA space. Arc Raiders, I still think has the potential to be at opening night live and then release a playable build shortly after. Just as a logical estimation, that's on August 20th, so the day after Delta Force would release on console. That's possible to see a playtest there. COD betas usually happen in September. Historically, the only one recently that didn't was Modern Warfare 3. That was on October 6th. And then Battlefield, well, I think it just kind of depends on when that is revealed and what they plan to do. Obviously, it could be something the game doesn't even launch this Q4. It could launch Q1 of 2026. But if it is something that they're gearing up for a launch later this year, 2042 was in October, while Battlefield 5 was in September. So you do have that sort of window of navigating these other betas that could be potentially happening as well for those main competitors, that it's something that I think just overall competition's good at this point. When we see what Call of Duty's done with Black Ops 6, the discontent we see around even just Season 4 Reloaded launching tomorrow, we see what happened with Battlefield in 2042 and the sort of please to not make the next game be something that is 2042. You see stuff like that when every developer, when every publisher is vying for your playtime. That's something that they got to work overtime to make sure that they get that, to make it worth playing. And to me, I like the sound of that. So is it too late for Delta Force? I don't think so. Will it have the sort of monumental impact on the industry that it could have if it released earlier in the year? Probably not, but I still think it's going to find its own audience. I think people will still enjoy it, and it's going to be one of those things that I think can have its own audience, even if it doesn't necessarily take away as much from the giants in the industry as it could have. But anyways, Delta Force on console is officially happening. Just wanted to fill you guys in and keep you in the loop with all that kind of stuff. Been having a blast. talking about a lot of stuff here that isn't Call of Duty, playing a lot of stuff that isn't Call of Duty. Again, Dune Awakening has absolutely engulfed my life. So hopefully you guys are interested in hearing about this free-to-play shooter that will be new for console players here in just a little bit of time. So let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Delta Force and other FPS coverage. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.